And our next speaker is Norbert Preining with TeXLive 2020 News in Tech Services at TeXLive.info. Please, Robert, take this in.
Yes, hello everyone. I hope you hear me clear. It's late practically everywhere where there are attendees now, besides in Japan and Australia. So thanks for all those who have still stay up or got up early. It's quite funny that I remember when we started this online conference, we were nervous whether we could fill the program, and Paolo was like pushing everyone to submit a lot of talks. At the end, I submitted 3 talks. Of the 3, I canceled one and merged the other 2 into one because I'm quite happy not to bore everyone for hours and hours of talk. So yeah, TeXLive 2020, I mean, not surprising what I'm talking about, TeXLive 2020 news and tech services. So let's go straight into TeXLive news. Very easy, it's nothing new. And tech services at TeXLive.info, there are lots of mirror. And that's it, thanks for your attention. More or less. Well, if you are interested, we can continue a bit more into details. It's not that that's so much. So what are the TeXLive news? So actually, I think since my last talk during a TUG conference on the TeXLive system or TeXLive manager development, it was in 2016, so already quite some time. Since then, the development speed has quite turned down a bit. I mean, one, because practically most features we saw necessary or have been requested, have been implemented. So we have a few things that we have added over the years. So especially, I think I picked a few, well, there are a lot of bug fixes, of course, but new features were that in 2017, we had, I think the most important thing were the TeXLive Manager shell. Why is this so important? Because it kicked off a lot of front ends. I mean, the now standard installer on Windows using TickleTK and then the background, the TeXLive Manager shell, my own TeXLive cockpit. So it was there to facilitate development of front ends for the TeXLive Manager in different languages than Perl. And then the addition of these aux trees, most people probably haven't heard about this. I will not talk about it. It is similar to what Context had with project, or the Context Minimals, I think, with project TeXMF. So you can add temporarily auxiliary trees to your configuration. So if you have a huge project and a specific TeXMF tree, so this can be done with this kind of aux trees, but this is not what I want. Then in 2018, actually, I think there wasn't much going on. I think the only change was that not only for info, but for all kind of TeXLive Manager outputs, I added JSON output as an option because I wanted to get communicate with the TeXLive Manager shell via JSON for my program. And I think in 2019, there were a few more interesting things triggered by lots of problems, mostly on Mac, as far as I remember, with download and compress programs. We implemented a way to configure these download and compress methods for TeXLive Manager. We are supporting like 4 different, well, 3 standard ways, and then as a way to for complete freedom of configuration. It's all documented in somewhere. And we also edited different compression programs, and at the same time, that's probably interesting, we switched to using LZ4 for backups, making backups on the system, because it's much faster than the XZ compression we used before. One other thing is that I think nobody ever used it because it's horribly slow, but in principle, there's SSH support for installation. So what's up in 2020? Again, as I said in the first slide, nothing, right? In the sense, nothing, in the sense there's nothing user facing, or those who are actually using it will probably not, hopefully, haven't seen any considerable changes. There are 2, well, one very small, this is the second one. So we do now a complete logging of all actions. And the other is was a bigger endeavor that took us quite some time, is that the containers, the files we are distributing are now versioned. So I go into these 2 for details for a short. So the first more verbose logging. This is rather trivial. So the TeXLive manager calls several programs in the background. So format util to update formats, text dumps, and this kind of stuff. Update map that does reading map files for DV, IPS, PDF TeX, and this kind of stuff, generating files. And by now we only save them when there was an error, but it's still for debugging, it's useful to have this available at any time. So now these additional outputs are always saved into a new file. It's called tlmgr comments.log. It's just parallel to the already tlmgr.log that has been used since, I don't know, 10 years or something. It's just at the same place. What is the more interesting change, or more, well, it's a bit more on the technical side. It's the version containers. So first of all, so what is it, version containers? So if you have ever, I mean, if you just type TeXLive manager, you don't see anything. But if you look once into the distribution tailnet directory, you see for each package we have in TeXLive, we have up to 15 or 20 different files. We call these here containers, this package.tar.xz. So we have this for the main files and for the source files and the documentation files and for binaries. And they all look the same. The package name followed by .tar.xz. It's the standard, it's just a tart and then compressed with xz. So what is the change we have done is just that there is some RNNNN, where NNN is a natural number, in there. That's the only change there is. Of course, I mean, these numbers are not arbitrary or not random. These numbers are the revision numbers of the TeXLive packages. So if you don't know, you have seen this probably if you run the TeXLive manager on the command line, you would see something lines like below here, update whenever package from local, this is the local version you have installed at the moment, to the to the repository where there is NNN. So that's the whole change. Looks like very simple and very trivial. So why did we do this, right? I mean, it's a good question. We haven't done it for the last 15 years or something. So it was something that, yeah, well, it's a change that we need to argue. Actually, this is from an email that was sent to the TeXLive mailing list. I think it was in November, no, in this November last year. It was not the first, actually. There have been a few requests for this. So what it's about packaging TeXLive, taking TeXLive as it is from CTAN and provide it via alternative methods. So these are alternative methods, in this case is package source, but there are several others whose basically operating system distribution, Linux distribution, want to repackage TeXLive. And the problem is that for them, there is these TeXLive packages on CTAN. They don't have the version information in the file names. Well, this is by itself not a problem, but it turns out later. What's the real problem is that the contents of this file changes periodically. Well, with every update we do, every day practically we do some updates. So these files, the file name stays the same, but the content changes, right? And why is this why is this a problem? Because this distribution have the checksum of identically named files. Yeah, yesterday it was the package foobar whatever, had a checksum of this and that, and overnight it was updated, and suddenly the checksum is different. So that changes periodically. This triggers download. So this email started. I mean, of course, first we didn't want to do it because it means a lot of work for us, but at the end we agreed that we try to support version. So why is this the problem? So redistributing TeXLive, I mean, I've given several talks about this. Here I want to focus on two different styles. So there's one way, this is when distributions use their own copy of upstream data. So like Debian and Red Hat, or this is only example, SUSE does the same, many others, yeah? They just create something, a checkout, for example, of the upstream data, TeXLive, and upload it to their own servers, Debian servers, and have it there forever, not forever, but for quite a long time. And then there are other packages that are just making the one from the email package source, but also Mac ports and several other distributions. They don't repackage. They don't use the data and save it on their own server, but they put it, they rely directly on upstream data. So these are our files, the stuff we are distributing on the CDAN service. Now, what they do normally for this directly, they say to the user, just get the file from upstream, then verify the checksum, unpack, install, do some other actions, right? They publish recipes, so it's in Mac ports, in all kind of, this is always the same, download the file from upstream. And well, in the second, to see that the download is correct and nothing is broken, they normally verify the checksum. And then you see already where the problem comes in, right? If they put the checksum into the recipe, the next day it will be wrong if there was an update. So that's the reason that some people turn to us and ask us to change this. Now, yeah, of course, as usual, you know, how did we do this? Of course, changing these kind of things touches quite a lot of parts of the TeXLive infrastructure on all the models. So of course, the container building, the TeXLive manager actions for install backup, whatever. You know, there are a lot of things where this kind of interesting. My first shot of the code, the first code I sent, I think a few days after it was requested. Of course, as usual, I'm very optimistic. You see here the diff start of the first patch I created. Well, there were 63 new lines and 19 deletions, so there was just a bit of renaming and stuff. So, well, I guess everyone who is doing a bit in software development is obviously that was not, well, the end of the story. Reality showed that we had quite a lot of other things to do. Actually, it got more difficult because at the same time we moved the server, the TUG server, and had problems with our well, update infrastructure. So there were three things going on: the switch to version containers, the switch to a new server, and some problem with layered stacked file system, which we use for testing. So we weren't sure where the actual problem is. That sorting this out took us quite some time. Well, anyway, we staged the switch, so we didn't do a hard switch for 2020, but staged the switch from, let's say, I think October on, November onwards in slowly, so that new packages got this versioned, also new updates created these version packages, but we didn't touch all packages. And only for the release of TeXLive 2020, we rebuilt all packages with version containers. And so that's the future. From now on, we will have these version containers. Now, why? I mean, of course, the original question was better support for redistribution of TeXLive. I mean, TeX isn't anymore since long. Practically all distributions use TeXLive nowadays. I don't remember there's any distribution using still some old version of TeX. So it's somehow our job also to make it easier for people redistributing TeXLive. Then one more thing, I mean, I don't do it well. You will see that I do it in some different way, but in principle, it makes it easy for everyone to keep a complete archive of all packages and all their versions, because you can do rsync, sync the TLNet, which is an option, and just don't delete disappearing files. What happens is that you will keep all old containers, also all versions before that would have been deleted, but you can keep them. So that's one thing. Another thing is that we won't do a complete rebuild for a release anymore. Up to now, normally for a TeXLive release, we didn't care. We just bumped all versions and did a full rebuild because to be sure that everything is consistent. We don't do this anymore because we want that the version numbers, a rebuild without the version number change would change probably the checksum, of course, and that is not something we would like to see because that would break again for redistributions. And one more thing that turned out to be necessary, that up to now we changes to the catalog data, so data from the TeX catalog that are included, up to now didn't actually bump the revision number, but we do this now because otherwise, again, we get different containers and problems. So that's more or less all about what the news for TeXLive are. As I say, they're not really front-facing news. Anyway, so that was something. The second part I want to talk about It's TeX services at TeXLive.info. So what is TeXLive.info? It's a domain I registered some years ago. It is now hosted on my server, which also hosts a few other things. And over the last year or something, I have added a lot of services that I think can be quite of use for users here. So a few of this overview of what is available. So there are the historic archives. I will go into details for each of them one by one. An archive of Telnet, also TeXLive distribution archive, then a mirror for the TL pretest, various CTAN related stuff, and then Git subversion mirror for TeXLive, and 2 repositories for TeXLive Manager. So what are they? So first, the historic archives. I mean, I will not explain. If you can look it up. There's a nice article in the TUG board from some time ago. It's just a collection of files of historic interest. You don't throw them away, they are there. So first versions, very old versions or releases. So you can look at it. I provide access to these files via rsync. The link is here in the stuff. I will also upload the slides later on. And yeah, this is interesting to check out some interesting files. More interesting, quite interesting, I think, is this TeXLive net archive. So we are distributing the TeXLive, we are distributing our full files via CTAN, right? But with the daily update, the previous version just disappears, right? And I mean, one thing we did was this renaming, so this changing the names of the containers to contain the revision. But it's still, I mean, people don't want to keep their own checkout. So what I do now, actually now, not now, since October, since end of August last year, it's already 1 year, wow, nearly 1 year. I do I archive the daily TeXLive net archive. So there is for every year, not for every year, starting from 2008, for every year, for every month, for every day, there's a directory that contains the telnet directory of CTAN of that day. So it's, you see here, so that the upper is the root. From there, you can go into, like, say, year, month, day to your liking. You can use TeXLive Manager to install from there, to do whatever you want. I have put in also the final releases for the last, I don't know, 10 years now. So I don't have the old data, of course, for the daily updates, but the final releases of the last, I think, 10 TeXLive releases, they are in the same archive under the release day, more or less. So you can check it out. So that's currently, surprisingly, it's not that big. Its current size is about 30 gigabytes. I checked today. Of course, I don't copy all these files, only when they change. But anyway. Then, currently not of interest, but normally when we prepare a new TeXLive release, or the last 2 months something, then we stop updating the CTAN network, but keep still updating internally, so to say, for testing. This is called TL pretest. And so pre-release testing of pre-release, and there are a few mirrors. The mirrors are listed down there in the footnote. I just joined there as a mirror, so you can get it there via either HTTPS or rsync. Well, now there is nothing there, but starting with the release of TeXLive 2021 in a few months, we will have data there. Then there are a lot of CTAN related services. So, well, first of all, the TeXLive.info became a member of the CTAN mirror group. So you might be redirected. Well, my server is, I think, in Holland. So if you are somewhere near this area, the CTAN mirror service might redirect you to my server. Everything should be there, it's no problem. But besides doing also the mirroring, I also tried, I mean, it's not a perfect solution. I need more time, but maybe it could be done in future. But I want to track the changes of CTAN. Actually, I would like to, what I did is make a Git repository from CTAN, where for every day I have a Git commit, right? For every day what came in on this day, or what was left or was removed. So everything is there more or less for the last, I don't know now, also quite some months, maybe half a year. Of course, what I do that the Git repository doesn't explode in size. For the Git part, I ignore large binary files like Debian packages or executables or CAP, so compressed stuff. Stuff that is anyway of no interest for Git, and it doesn't make sense. But so all other files, text files, whatever, even PDFs, I think they are all like Git version. Of course, it's not perfect because I mean I would like for every package update I would have like to have a Git commit, but that would require, of course, much more collaboration with the CTAN team and would put much more load on the CTAN team, and they are well, they are as everyone as volunteers overloaded, so I don't want to burden them that much. Anyway, so at least for daily Git commits, it's there. There is a mirror. So the mirror I mentioned already is here, is available via HTTPS and rsync. The Git repository is available either via Git or the web interface is also there. The current raw Git repo size is about 8 GB. So that means if you check it out, it will increase up to normally not completely 200%, but 150% or something, depending on the compression rates. So this is something that is running since quite some time now. Then something that I have been using now already for, I don't know, 3 years or something, 4 years or longer, is a Git mirror. I used Subversion for many years, of course. I mean, we moved from Perforce to Subversion. I still remember this change. And I was happy because Perforce was a pain. Subversion improved a lot, but still for me, how I'm working, and that means a lot of work during traveling, is I want to commit things even if I'm not online and this kind of stuff. I know Subversion can do a lot, but fast Git branches is also something that for development is quite nice. Anyway, so I went through so of course not manually, I converted, not converted, the SVN into a Git repository as a complete mirror. It is in a way that you always can track back. So I actually develop stuff in Git and I committed from Git to the Subversion at the moment. I wrote an article about the Git repository now contains the complete history back to our switch from Perforce to Subversion. That was in 2005. So that was when the first Subversion commit is there. The mirroring operation runs every 50 minutes. So there can be a squeeze, of course. It's not running permanently. And if you look into the Git repository, you might see a lot of dev/something branches. These are development branches I use or I dropped or I forgot about, but stuff where I developed things which was not ready for, still is not ready for prime time, for inclusion. And it's quite nice to have this in Git because it makes it easy. I just warn everyone, don't do a casual checkout of this. The raw Git is currently 31 GB. The checkout is about 42 GB. It will take some time. I was asked why I don't put this on GitHub. If anyone from GitHub here or has good contacts, I'm happily putting up on GitHub, but GitHub has a repository size, I think max is 1 GB or something. So it's ridiculously out of the limits. I'm quite sure they won't be happy with that. Of course, I would be happy to have it somewhere else because, I mean, if you have a CDN system backing up your Git mirror, that's much better. Anyway, the Git repository is there. There is the link. You can look at the Git web interface also. I do not very often. I think it was a bit less than a year ago. I do also run Git stats on it, so then you can see how many lines of code, how many commits, who is the top committer. I mean, everyone can guess who it is. And so there is also this TL stats. So that's the Git SVN mirror. The last two items are two repositories for TeXLive Manager. The one is a repository for GNU-PG. So TeXLive already since 2000, when was it, 15, 14? I don't remember. Or was it 16? Provides the necessary information to cryptographically verify that these distribution files, the files we're distributing, are actually true. I mean, otherwise an attacker can change on one mirror, change a file into some nasty thing. And so we have the whole infrastructure in place to verify this cryptographically. This is on most system that I run, all of them check it automatically. There's one thing, you need GNU-PG to verify this, right? I mean, this is the standard way to verify, so cryptographically verify cryptographically signatures. But we don't ship GNU-PG in TeXLive. There is a very simple reason. You probably have heard the word export restrictions on cryptographic software. Then there are import restrictions, like France has a complete stupid law about this. It's very complicated, and we as TeXLive, we don't want to get into legal troubles or even the slight chance of getting into legal troubles to shipping GNU-PG. So we don't put it in TLNet, we don't burn it on the DVDs, because that's the biggest problem, right? Burning it on the DVD and then sending it off to India. India, as far as I remember, also very strict import rules for cryptographic software. So that's something we don't want, right? So what I did is I set up a repository. So first of all, most Linux system and Mac Linux, most Linux system have GNU-PG already installed. I cannot imagine any Linux system that hasn't. I mean, of course, you can come up, but this would be crazy. The big problems are Windows and Mac users who normally don't have GNU-PG installed. So what I did, I set up a repository that contains a package called TLGPG. That's a very minimal version of GNU-PG compiled just for Windows and Mac OS. And so the TeXLive utility on macOS already integrates nicely, offers to install this package automatically. On Windows, I don't know what's the status is. So anyway, it's there. So people, especially on Windows and Mac OS, where there is no GNU-PG available, can use it. So the TeXLive manager repository address is given there. There's also a Git web interface and a Git repository. I also have it on GitHub, I think, but I'm not sure now. Yeah, I think that's from the security point of view, quite nice. And the last thing is the TeXLive contrib repository. So you might, those who have been here for a bit longer, might remember that there was the contrib, TL contrib repository that TACO set up many years ago. It was a very nice system because people could upload their own stuff via a web interface. It was all nice. It stopped working at some point, and TACO, I discussed with TACO a lot, and he didn't want to, well, he didn't want to put more energy in it. So I took this over. I do it a bit differently. I don't let users do their own stuff. They should send me requests or ready-made files. I'll put them in. So what is in there? This is basically packages or files that we cannot distribute within TeXLive. There are many reasons why we don't distribute them. There can be license restriction, there can be restrictions on redistribution, there can be restrictions about support of non-free software. There are quite a lot of, well, there are not so many packages there anyway, but there are some. And for them, there is a separate repository where I put, I mean, it still needs to be free. It still needs to be in the sense that I can redistribute it, so it shouldn't be illegal. But I put them in there for things that we cannot put into the TeXLive. Of course, and I repeat this to anyone always asking me, the main aim is we want the packages all in TeXLive proper. But if it cannot enter there, well, there is an alternative. It contains now, I don't know, like 40, 50 packages, some font packages, all kind of stuff. Yeah. So there is the TeXLive manager repository, can be pointed at this URL. There's a Git interface and a Git repository as usual, containing the stuff. Yeah. So that was from my side. I just want to say, I mean, these services on TeXLive.info, on my server, I mean, I keep them running. I have planned to keep them running, of course, as long as server space, connectivity, bandwidth, and all this kind allows me. It's my personal server. I'm positively surprised that the TeXLive net archive and the CTAN Git repository is not so exploding as I expected it. I expected it to grow much faster. So it looks good for that I can keep it for some time. What would be another problem be if suddenly billions of, no, not billions, but like a few hundred started to saturate the bandwidth. So there are some things where I then say I have to, well, throttle bandwidth or this kind of whatever. Yeah. But I try to keep this service running. Anyway, that's all for me. I'm open for questions, Q&A, requests for the contrib, for the TeXLive info server, for TeXLive, if you have any wishes or feature requests or questions. And other than this, thanks everyone for staying up late. Thanks a lot.
We have a few questions on the Q&A, Norbert.
Yes, I'm switching to I think I turned off now QA, where we are here. I want to move to Git altogether instead of mirroring. So first, Henry, for your question concerning, no, wait, where is the start? Is that where I do?
The first one is by anonymous attendee. Is there any work being done?
I think this is nothing I can really answer. There's nothing. This is not for my. Yes, yes. Henry, you answered. Thanks. Okay, Henry, for your question, why not move to Git altogether? Good point. Well, it would need a complete rewrite of all our infrastructure scripts. At the moment, we rely on the fact that Subversion has a central server. There is a central truth. And what does central truth means? We need to guarantee that packages have always increasing version numbers. And increasing version numbers, the version number, how is it computed for the technical interested one? It's the highest, the maximum of all the latest changed commits of a file in a repository. That means with Subversion, this is uniquely defined, easy to compute, and guaranteed to be increased. Now, switching, for example, the TeXLive contrib runs on Git. I have changed a few things so that, for example, the basic stuff of updating the database can work also on the Git repository. But it is non-trivial because, I mean, Git has no linear history. And so you have to be careful with this. And the other things, I mean, we have hundreds of support scripts, automatic testing in the background, lots of things going on. So I cannot, it would be nice, but I don't see reasonably a way to actually switch to Git in the near future unless a lot of work is put into checking everything. Well, GitLab, yeah, I think GitLab is, I got, yeah, with GitLab, I know, of course, it's the same with GitLab. I think GitLab has also a repository size maximum. We could set up a GitLab instance on TUG, but I'm honestly, this is a lot of work, and you don't want to set a Git. I mean, providing the Git, I mean, Gittier or any of these clones, whatever, it's nice, but it eats a lot of resources. Especially the TUG server is not very strong. And I mean, if you bump up, I mean, my server is not bad. Let's put it this way, because as I say, I have to TeXLive info, but also my own domain and a few others. But still, it cranks a lot, yeah? And the TUG server is not that strong, and we don't want to pay monthly from the TUG side just to provide a GitLab or a Git instance. Yeah, so that's basically current reason. Any further questions?
I should rephrase him. Thank you, Norbert. Very nice talk.
Okay, thanks everyone for staying up.